In this tutorial I am going to show you guys how to make brushes and then use those brushes to create patterns. So when you open Photoshop and you go to your brush tool on a tool bar on the left hand side, the brush one is this little one here in between the plaster looking one and the stamp. So Photoshop already has a series of basic brushes. If you are using CC, which I am, which is the newest version of Photoshop, it will come up here. It will have sort of whatever brush you last selected, and you'll have this little brush panel that you can click on, which shows you, it comes up, all the basic brushes that you have on Photoshop. If you are using one of the PCs, it's slightly different. You should just be able to click on that one and actually scroll through them all on here. Again, I can probably do it there if I open them all up. But it shows them slightly differently. I can sort of make it smaller so I can see them. But as I said, on the new version on Adobe Photoshop CC, you have to click on the little tab to open up all your brush preferences. So Photoshop has a certain amount of preset brushes. Okay, most of these are pretty basic, and most of the ones you'll tend to use are just the normal round ones, possibly with a bit of a soft outer edge, the strong thick ones with the really strong hardness, and then there are also sort of some of these speckled ones that do different things. If I open up a new page, and go to, I'm just going to select A4. If you haven't automatically got an A4 page come up, you can go to print and then A4 on here. Again, if you're using the PCs, it loads slightly differently. You have to go to international paper and then A4. So I'm just going to click on that, create page. And I select maybe one of these different preset brushes. I can change the size of it up here. There's also shortcuts where you can change the size of the brush. We'll just work off up the top for here. You've got all these different brushes, and you can see them there. Again, make that bigger. Oh, zoomed in a bit too much there. You can see those brushes, and you can obviously paint with those brushes as well, and you can change the hardness and the effect of them. And this here changes sort of the way they draw. Okay, and you can change the direction of the brush as well. That's what way round it goes. Most of these brushes pretty basic. Some of them allow you to do, a few different things. But generally speaking, you're not necessarily gonna use all of these brushes on here. But what you can do is make your own brushes to do sort of different things with. So what I'm going to show you today is how to create your own brushes from an image, and then how you can use those brushes to make patterns or prints or sort of draw on things and do kind of different elements with it. So I'm going to get rid of this document here because we don't need it. So to create your own brush, you will need 2 images for this little tutorial that we're going to do. Think about the images that you're going to do because we're going to create a pattern. So think about maybe images that could link together, or sometimes ones that are completely opposite as well can create quite interesting patterns. Obviously this project is for a horror poster, so I've actually gone a bit more Halloween-y themed, and I've got a picture of a pumpkin and a picture of a cat on Google here. You want to try and get an image with a white background, preferably, because it's going to make it much easier to select it. So these two both have got white backgrounds, or this one's got no background on it. So it should be really nice and easy to select. And again, remember, try to make sure we've got good pixel sized images so that we get a good quality image. Okay, and you'll need to open both those images in Photoshop. So if you're on a Mac, you should just be able to drag each image onto the Photoshop icon and it will open. My computer's been a bit slow today. That one there, that should open as well. So I've opened them up on 2 separate documents, and for now that doesn't really matter. Okay, so I've got one document here and one document here. If you're on a PC, you might be able to copy and paste it into Photoshop, or you might have to save the image and then go to File, Open to get your images up. But once we've got our images on Photoshop, what we're going to do is we're going to need to select those images. So I'm just going to come back to this tool here because I've still got my brush on. So this is our Move tool. So we always come back to this tool when we want to select and do different things. So with your image, you're going to want to essentially sort of select and cut out your shape. So the shape of the cat in this instance. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. So if we're cutting out any images or selecting any certain parts of images, there's the first way that you could have a go at doing is using the quick selection tool. When you press the quick selection tool, you'll get sort of 3 different things come up here. You've got add selection, new selection, and add subtract from selection. So when you first click on it, you want to make sure you've got the first one selected, which is new selection. Okay, and you'll see you've got your circular shape for where you're selecting, and you've got size up here, so you can make it bigger and smaller depending upon your selection. So if you sort of just hold down and run the mouse or trackpad across where you want to select, it should automatically detect the sort of difference. This is quite nice and easy because I've got a real strong clear contrast. So I've got the white versus the black, and it's selected the cat really easy. So that's one way you could make a selection. Another way that you could make a selection is using the Magic Wand tool. So the Magic Wand tool has a certain tolerance up here. At the moment it's 32. If I click on the outside, it has automatically selected everything around oh, bless me, around the outside of the cat. If I then go to select and inverse, or command inverse as a shortcut, it's now just selected the cat. Okay, so you can use the Magic Wand tool. If, for instance, your tolerance is quite low, it might not perfectly select it all. So you can see in that instance it's not selected it the best. You can press Command D to deselect, and you can adjust your tolerance up here until you get a much better selection. Okay, so notice the difference between the last one and the one before because I've upped the tolerance. If I did it again, okay, that's even better. So you'd eventually select the right area. Another way of doing it is maybe cutting it out. You can use any of these tools, the lasso tool, the polygon tool, or magnetic. The polygon tool would allow you to sort of cut round it, but you might not get the perfect straight shape. And the magnetic lasso tool is quite a good one because you can click and sort of just drag your mouse around and it will automatically try to define the edge. You can add your own points as well just by clicking. You need to go all the way around. And then I'm just going to do like a real rubbish quick version and come back to base, and it would make the selection. But probably the easiest ones to use would be the quick selection or the Magic Wand tool. And as I said, this is much easier by having that white background. So again, I'm just going to use the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to click on the outside, and I'm just going to go Command I to inverse. No, I'm not. Ignore me. I'm going to go to select, inverse, and just have my cat selected. So once I've got the cat selected, if I go up to edit, there's something on here called Define Brush Presents. Okay, and when you click on that, you are creating your brush. I'm going to name that one Cat, which is nice and easy. Okay, so if you can see there, it's created my cat brush, but we're not going to immediately use it yet. So I want to create my other one as well. Okay, so if I go back up this tool, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on my pumpkin. Okay, so this time I'm going to use the quick selection tool. Make sure I'm on that new selected layer. Make my brush a bit bigger. And there we go. One thing to note, if you're using the quick selection tool and you select too much of an area, you can go on the minus and get rid of it. So let's say I didn't want that top bit. I can then press the minus and it goes back over it as well. Or again, you can press plus if you want to add it back in. Okay, so if I just go back over that, should select that area there. Make sure you get all the little bits Okay, and there we go, so I've selected my pumpkin. Again, I'm going up to Edit, Define Brush Presents, and putting that in there, pumpkin. Okay, so I've got my 2 brushes. So now, if I create another new document, so again, just an A4 page will do, I can go to my brushes up here, and I can select the different brushes, and you can see in there I've got a cat, I've got a pumpkin, I've also got a random bearded man from where I made one the other day, but we're going to focus on that cat and pumpkin that we've got on here. So you'll see with the cat here, if I make him a little bit bigger so you can see, there we go, currently he's facing this way round, so obviously I can change this, if I do a whole 180, he's now upside down. Okay, so you can change around the way the cat is facing. So I bring him back down to here. There we go, I've gone almost all the way around. I just want to put that back to normal. That way up. Can't get him the right way up now. I think it was there, wasn't it? There we go. I can also flip. So I've got flip X, flip Y. So you've got them on there as well, so I can make them go the other way around. And I've got the size difference I can do up here. I can decide the amount of spacing if I was to paint with them. So I can have them much further apart or much closer. Okay, I'm just going to undo that. Obviously, as you can see, when I stamp it, I've created that sort of cat brush there. And this brush effect creates a sort of, I suppose, faint sort of stamp on here. So I've got the opacity right up 100% on here. So you can see the colour of them. I can change that colour as well if I wanted to. Stamp over the top so you can see the brush on there. And I can obviously squeeze this as well to make a squashed cat. So I can do lots of different things with it. I'm just going to undo those because I don't need any of those on there. So what you guys will need to do first off is obviously get both your brushes, have a little play with them, and what you're going to do is create a pattern with your brush, or a sort of style pattern with your brush. So I'm going to select obviously the black for my cat here, and I'm going to do cat here. Let's do one here. Maybe one down here. In the middle. Yeah, it's a bit of an irregular pattern. A little bit random. In fact, let's do, yeah, that'll do. And then I'm going to go onto my pumpkin on my brushes. And let's pick a sort of orangey, goldeny colour maybe. Okay. And again, I'm going to get my pumpkin, let's size that down because it's absolutely huge. There we go. Good size. Okay. And then I'm going to put my pumpkin in there as well. Bit of a random print, but you want to try and make sure you fill your page. Don't do a print right on the edge, because when we repeat it, that print won't repeat fully and it'll be a bit awkward. So make sure you try and keep your brush within the actual page, but also don't leave lots of white space. So if you do leave a big white gap, crop your page in to get rid of it. So I haven't really got a white gap, but had I had a big white gap around the edges, I might have wanted to crop my page in. So I'll just do that side a tiny bit. Don't really need to do any of the other sides. So hopefully you'll end up with a sort of funny pattern. Obviously this is quite a basic one, so think about your pattern and what you want to do. Once you've got a sort of pattern with your prints from your brushes on it. We're going to go up to that edit again, and this time we've now got something that says define pattern. Okay, so if I click on that, I can call this my Halloween pattern. And I'm pressing there. And again, I'm going to create another new document. A4 size. I'll press create. And now I'm going to make a repeated pattern from that little mini one that I made. So if I come down here, there's a circular shape, sort of with 2 shades on it. And I can go up to pattern at the top here. If I click on that, it will automatically find the last pattern, but there's other ones on here as well. There's some preset patterns. It finds my pattern. Okay, at the moment it says scale 100%, so it's just copying the pattern that was on the other page. If I then change that and bring it down, it repeats the pattern that I created. So obviously find sort of where you want. You could even blow it up if you wanted to, make it much bigger instead. But preferably you're probably bringing it down. Okay, so there we go. So I've got my pattern, my repeat pattern on here. I'm happy with it as is. Okay, we've made a pattern layer on there. What we can do to add a little bit more to this is we could then duplicate this pattern layer. Okay, and we can add different effects to it. So if I, on that, duplicated that layer by dragging it down to the new layer panel, so I've got 2 patterns on there, but they're directly layered on top of each other, and they've also got a white background. So if I wanted to get rid of the white background on the top layer, I could use my magic wand tool, and it won't let me do it first because I need to rasterize the layer. So if I right click on this layer and control click and scroll down to rasterize layer, then makes it editable. So again, if I then click on here, it's picked up part of the pumpkin, but I don't mind that too much actually, because it might be quite effective when I delete it. So I'm going to delete that. Now it doesn't look like I've made a difference because it's already on top of another layer. However, if I then move it over, you should be able to see the other one underneath. Yeah, you can. Okay, so you can see my sort of weird cut in half pumpkin as well. But I don't mind because, as I said, it's going to make it look quite sketchy. So I've moved it over slightly. You can also press Command T to get your transform box up, and you could even make it bigger. You don't have to. Again, I'm just going to press enter on that. Zoom in. Now I've got sort of double cats and double pumpkins. And again, with that top layer, I could go up to image, adjustments, and maybe change the hue and saturation, which is going to change the colour of the top cat, in theory. But it's not working. Let's come back to that in a minute. It didn't work. Okay. So again, if you remember when we aged that image, we used different effects on this layers effect panel. And again, you can try seeing what they do to make your pattern look a little bit different. So you've got sort of lots of different things in here. That's quite effective. And again, I can come back to my pattern and I can move it, have a play. So that's quite nice. Nice little effect on there. If I turn that off, see that's the top pattern, that's the top one, that's the one underneath it. So we're sort of doing different things to it. So we've got the difference put on it. Okay, so we can do lots of different things to it. Also we could maybe on this one, so if I turn off that top layer and I come back to my magic wand tool, I could again rasterize that layer. Okay, and I could maybe select all the, I'm going to change my tolerance to 120, a bit higher, 130. I want it to go around the pumpkin. I want to make sure it selects the pumpkin as well. Oh, I'm nearly there. 140. There we go. I think that is, it's gone completely over the pumpkin now instead. Gone the other way. Let's try less. 80, oh, nearly. 75. Tiny bit. There we go, so I've got it all. So I've selected everything but the cat and the pumpkins. So I could pick a colour on here. Let's pick a very sort of light blue because it will really contrast. And I could fill that in. Okay, and then again I could put that layer back over the top. There we go. So I've created a bit of a crazy pattern. Okay, so you can do lots of different things. You can experiment a bit more with your patterns. Obviously I put difference on there, but you can kind of see different things that you can do. Oh, which will have different effects on it. That's quite a nice one actually. I quite like that one as well. It's quite subtle. It works well. Okay, so I've created really nice patterns on there. And when you're happy with your pattern, you can press Control, and then again we're going to flatten image. Okay, and it will merge them together, and you have your final outcome. So you'll need your Graphics Techniques PowerPoint open, and you'll need to put making a brush and creating a pattern. And on that PowerPoint, you'll need to show your original image, okay, so your pumpkin and your cat. Okay, and you'll also need to show the original pattern, so this one here, okay, and then your final pattern as well. So this one here. So this one will show your brushes that you made. This one shows your final pattern that you've created. And that is how you create a brush and then turn it into patterns. So I bumbled a little bit through the middle of this one, but hopefully you should be able to create some interesting patterns with that.